Welcome back to the Left, Right, and Center show. We're coming to the conclusion now that no better name exists.
That's
So
true. It's going to be a step down no matter what we do. We
we're,
got to commit to the leap at some point.
yeah, we're struggling to fall in love with another name as much as that one.
Yeah.
So we'll get there. But today we have three main topics we want to talk about. We have packing the Supreme Court, DC becoming a state, and the Ma'Khia Bryant shooting.
Yep, which is a little bit old news, but people are still talking about it. And we have something a little bit bigger than just the scenario to talk about with it. So
yeah, and we didn't get to cover it too much. I don't think we covered it all last week, did we? So
I think we might have mentioned it, but
yeah, but so we wanted to cover it a little bit, and then our normal lots of topics and things, and for our viewers, anything you want us to cover, feel free to type it in there. We'll see if we can't pull something up on it. And if you have questions, we'll hit that one.
I can't promise this, but when we get to my segment in the news and memes, there might be some naked Lizzo pictures. So please send children out of the room. That's my recommendation.
Naked Lizzo.
We'll talk about that when we get to it.
Well, I almost want to just start on yours now, but maybe we need to hold on.
You can't just go right into that.
Yeah, I don't know. Now the anticipation, buddy. So when I pull up news and memes, they're almost always like left focused. You
get a lot of them off of Reddit.
And yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say is, I get them from Reddit, and that's generally a pretty left viewed site, or at least what I'm looking at on there. There's plenty of conservative views on there too, but
it's pretty left.
But
young people, man.
I found one that is, I guess, kind of right, or maybe not even right. I think the conversation I've been having with people is they say the anti-vaxxers or whatever are just their own group. They're not left or right or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough preamble. So I saw this one and thought it was kind of funny. For the listeners, it says, imagine going around the internet yelling at complete strangers, demanding they inject themselves with a foreign substance, verbally abusing those who say no, and being 100% certain you're the good guy. So, it's an interesting, point of view there. It's obviously extreme and, not a fair representation of the situation, but it does give you a thought,
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. I would use that tweet to more point at like your motivations behind things, right? So, like obviously, it sounds like behind this, it's not just that he's telling you to consider whether he's a bad person. He's probably also suggesting that maybe vaccines are foreign substances that probably shouldn't be in your body. Maybe he's doing that too. But the point where like examine your motivations, like. Are you actually that afraid of COVID where you get someone's face and scream at them, which is going to increase your chances of contracting COVID from them? Or is it more of kind of like a team sport or like a tribal thing where when somebody's going against the grain, you have to point it out and you have to get angry to get them into line? Just going to point out for everybody on the left who's doing that, that's a very conservative tendency. I'm proud of you.
For me, I think where I take exception to the people that he's talking about here is mostly really getting up in someone's face, yelling at them. I mean, first off, if it's a complete stranger, how do you know if they've taken the vaccine or not? Like, are
Especially
you doing
now.
for needle injection point searches or what? I mean, so there's that's a little whatever, but like if someone chooses not to do it, it's not really your place to go up and yell at them for it. It's not breaking the law. Yeah. There's no mandate. You have to get vaccinated, Well, it
depends on the state. Is there no mandate? No, that doesn't depend on a state. Are there no vaccine mandates?
Not that I'm aware of. They're not from a government standpoint. There are some private mandates, I believe, like companies are starting to say if you don't get vaccinated, you can't come back to the office. You can't come back to the office. You can't work here. I don't know the legality side of that, but I've heard of those things happening. So
Yeah. So, I mean, this actually rolls right into my news. So I can't, this right here. So for those of you,
I saw this interview.
yeah, for those of you who have been, going outside and when you're alone, you have your mask off because you're not a vapid idiot. Well, the CDC's on your side now. Now officially 1 year after the pandemic starts, when they've been telling us the entire time that COVID almost doesn't spread at all outdoors, especially if it's sunny, that, okay, now you don't have to wear a mask if you're vaccinated. like, I just like, no shit, CDC. Like, welcome to the party. We've been here. I'm glad you finally arrived. And we're probably going to get demonetized, even though we're not monetized. So they're going to preemptively demonetize this channel because you're not allowed to speak out against the CDC. But like, I don't know, man. It's like, I'm tempted to say why do we take the CDC seriously? And I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to pull it back a little bit. I'm just going to point out, like, there's no adults in the room. These guys are supposed to be the experts, but all they are is a federal bureaucracy. They have their strengths, they have their weaknesses, and they have a lot of weaknesses. And one of them is just being normal, like just being normal about this. I think the director of the CDC was talking about her feelings of impending doom a couple weeks ago, and then nothing happened. And then she's like, "Oh yeah, my feelings of impending doom have gone away." It's like, okay, well, we didn't have those feelings because we were just looking at the data. And Tim, is your
Fixed it.
I can't.
I
Oh
fixed
man,
it.
you're like coming in and out.
Oh my goodness.
Could
we have. Can you hear me at least or no?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Oh, he says
okay,
it's fine.
Well, ignore me then.
We do have a bit of storm going on here, so.
Oh, we're about to have a storm here as well, so.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll both get shocked by lightning from each end, and then we'll become some kind of weird superhero.
Yeah. Did you watch her the interview or whatever she did
when she was doom one or the one where she
the CDC one where they were talking about the mask allowance and stuff, or the no mask requirement anymore outside?
No, I think I listened to it.
I saw it and it was like CDC to give new updated guidance, based on vaccine and vaccinations and whatever on this, that, and the other. And I was like, oh, cool. And I watched it and it was like 8 minutes long or something, wasn't? And afterwards I'm like, that was absolutely worthless.
Yeah. It's like
what?
They're like,
you can now go outside without a mask and be 3 feet away from each other.
Right. Exactly. What? It's like, no. It's like, no, CDC. Hold on. That they had a chart. It's like everything on the left side of the chart was people who are vaccinated. This is what they can do. And it's like, okay, under there should be everything that you did before the pandemic you can do now because you're vaccinated. Your risk is now less than if you walk around without the flu vaccine. Like, you are now good to go. And
well, they have shown, let me say it that way, that vaccinated people are getting it and spreading it. They're just not experiencing the symptoms as strongly. Like, their body's able to fight it and get rid of it. So
I'm gonna need that study, but from what I understand, they are, and sometimes they still get it and die, but it's like, I don't know, 1 or 2 people. Like, it's insanely low.
Yeah, I think, but I'm not talking about. Again, masks generally were argued to be for others' protection, not as much yours. And I'm continuing that and saying,
sure. Yeah,
right. And so I'm continuing that point and saying, like, if being vaccinated doesn't prevent you from getting and spreading it, then you going without a mask is still not as dangerous probably as it was before, but still dangerous in that you can spread it. So from what I'm understanding, the mask recommendation, I guess is the right word, from the CDC isn't going to go away, at least for indoor cases where the spreading is very likely, until the vaccinated population gets high enough that they feel mass spread events and stuff just wouldn't happen from it anymore.
Yeah, so. Look, I got to say, I mean, we're out of the woods here. We're pretty much, people are still dying from it, and people will continue to still die from it. But This is my favorite chart. We've been doing this ever since maybe about here on this show. We've been talking about this chart. This is the excess mortality chart. So this is how many people normally die every year, and then this is how many people died last year. You can very clearly see the coronavirus pandemic, right? I mean, shit. Like, when's the last time we had a spike of deaths in the summer? I'm guessing just about never, or the Black Plague. But the point being, if you start getting over here on the right-hand side, where you're getting this is a couple months back, we are almost touching baseline normal again. This thing is almost over. Our risk from the coronavirus is almost gone, right? It's down to just like a normal disease, right? In my opinion, we're done with this. We're done. We're done. I mean, people who aren't vaccinated, I personally would tell you, yeah, you probably should be wearing a mask. But everybody who's vaccinated, just go about your life. And I'm not your doctor, so don't take my word for it. That's my personal opinion. Seriously, don't take my word for it.
Dude, my opinion is, with us only having 30% of the population vaccinated or whatever.
48 now. 46.
Is it? Okay. So last I looked, it was like 30 something. So yeah, even 50. So 50% of the population vaccinated. A lot of that population is the older generation, but I would say a good chunk of it isn't, because if 2 weeks ago or a week ago it was only 30 something, and now we're up 12 more percent. That 12% is likely the younger generation that just got access, but maybe not. I guess the point I'm trying to make though is half the population is still susceptible, and if we stop doing the things that got us back off the risk curve, which is wearing a mask, being healthy, washing our hands, which has now become kind of second nature, right? Like, I don't even think about putting my mask on when I'm going somewhere, and when I walk into a place and don't have it on, I'm like, oh, I'm not wearing any pants, I need to go back and get some.
That's for sure. It will take some time to get over that. Do you know when that Texas mask mandate was? When was that repealed? That was back in February.
A couple months or a couple weeks ago, at least. Yeah, I thought it was in March, but I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head. But
I think it was March 4th. Hold on. Yeah. Just give me 1 second here. I just trying to make a point about this. So I did this research earlier. I'm just trying to get this date so I don't say it incorrectly on air.
Yeah. While you're reading it, while you're looking it up, I'll read some chat. So Daniel says tree pollen is actually the main carrier of the virus.
Oh, so, God.
New conspiracy.
I got smacked down. It wasn't even now with all of the flowers out. I got smacked down a couple weeks ago hard. I was practically like falling through my front door and just laying there dead, for hours. I don't know what it was.
Apparently Connecticut got rid of the religious exemption for vaccines. So Amanda in chat was saying that's interesting.
Well, so does that mean there's a mandate then? Right?
Because
if there's an exemption, then the only way you have an exemption is if there's a mandate in the first place. You can't be exempt from something that's not a mandate.
Maybe you're exempt from the future mandate.
Ooh.
Yeah. Time travel.
Yeah.
There was another thing she wrote about schools. I think she wrote something like, if you are going into a public school, there it is. So if you're going into a public school, you have to be vaccinated unless you have a medical exemption. I don't know if that's just in Connecticut or what, but that's what she's saying. She's clarifying for the vaccine thing. She said not for COVID vaccine, for all vaccines. So there are mandates for getting your children, whatever vaccines, when the multi-vaccine when they're kids. So
yeah.
Interesting.
All right. Just real quick, and we can move on to the next topic. Oh, gotta move my little head there. So this is Texas. This is when they lifted the ban. They lifted the mask mandate around these days. It was either March 2nd or March 4th. And this is caseload. This isn't excess death, but this is caseload. So as you can see, Texas just went down a little bit in cases, right? And now, there's always 100%. We we mess around with statistics here all the time. So we're here very aware that there are pitfalls with this. Right now, the question is, well, was Texas heading to 0, and now they have these cases because they lifted the mandate? It's very hard to figure out. Like I suppose if you do this, you can see that during that time period, the rest of the country had a little bit of a spike, but even then, that's not a perfect control, right? Even though that goes in my favor, right? That would say the rest of the country had a spike, and Texas didn't have a spike, even though they did the mask mandate. But it's like, well, is it a southern state thing? Are they all outside now? Like, what are the different factors in this? But at the very least, Texas lifting their mask mandate did not send the country into the state.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to be too bad, and the reason was, my understanding was in Texas they weren't really enforcing it to begin with, so those people that really didn't want to wear it probably still weren't, and there was some percentage of people that were probably like, well, no mandate now, I don't have to wear it, I won't. Like the people that are, I will follow the rules, but I don't want to wear this shit, right? But what percentage of people is that? Maybe 10 or 15%.
Right. You don't know. But so, I mean, that goes to the case that I have been attempting to make is that and this is a tough case. And this is the case that people have been debating since the inception of governments is how much security do you trade off for freedom? Like, what's the balance there? And the question is how much can you trust the individuals, and is it your job to trust or distrust individuals, right? So, for example, is it your job just to safeguard the liberty, or are there certain exceptions? Like, if it was the Black Plague, I would definitely expect the government to infringe on some of my liberties, right? The Black Plague killed a third of the population, right? So, I mean, this was obviously nowhere near that, but what's the balance? I don't know. But my point this whole time has been, it's like, people especially, and you saw this in Texas, people in the cities kept wearing masks, right? Because that's what they chose to do, and it's what those people in those cities probably needed to do because they were more packed together than people in the country, right? So it's people making their free choices. A lot of them still chose to wear the masks, which is good. That's individual liberty. That's their choice. And you weren't arbitrarily enforcing regulations on people who didn't need it.
Yeah. Man, I got a frog in my throat, so I apologize for all the noise making over here. There's so many what ifs, right? I'll close on, like, if it was the Black Plague, well, who knows? It could have been the Black Plague if this is what they got back then. Medical information and other things helped save a lot of people's lives. The ability to transmit information back and forth and learn what this was, how it's transmitted, how it affects people, all of that, to be able to react more quickly. So who knows what this is compared to the Black Plague, or it maybe the Black Plague would have been like the flu to us now. Who knows? But
yeah, well, I mean, you got to say one of the big comorbidities for back then is off the table. We're in a whole heck of a lot of fat people back in the Middle Ages. That's true.
I still would have been.
You would have been a Celtic warrior.
So another one I got, I thought this one was absolutely funny, and it's one of those you have to take like a triple look at before you really understand what's going on here. But
yeah,
this thing breaks so many stereotypes. It's like what? If I saw this truck going down the road, my first thought would probably be like, one of those Trumper. Wait a minute.
Right, exactly. Like, you would just honestly there goes a Trumper. You wouldn't even look close. I've seen a version of that truck, not to one up you, but I've seen a version of that truck. It had I think 4 flagpoles, or it was at least 2 flagpoles, and they had everything on both of those flagpoles. It was top to bottom, it was all flags. There was like the Nazi flag, there was the gay pride flag, there was just everything in between, right? Like Don't Step on Me, the Gadsden flag, right? The American flag. It was, you name it. If it has a flag, it was on that damn pole. It's like, I don't know what this guy's trying to say, but he's saying a lot of different things.
Maybe that's his version of the coexist sticker.
Yeah, it's still curious, very curious. Are we gonna have the Nazis coexist with the? I think they probably had the Jewish flag on there. I would not be surprised. All right, what you got?
I can do another one. I just did the
Oh, you did?
stereotype truck.
Yeah, well,
That's fine. I got another quickie.
yeah,
Maybe
I
not.
take the opportunity.
So so
I
I
hate
can do
this.
multiple quickies in a row, buddy.
Come
Okay.
on.
Um, so this says for listeners, it's just a protester holding up a sign. It says racism is so American that when you protest it, people think you are protesting America. Interesting take on it. I thought I'd get your opinion, which I think I know what you're going to say, but
Yeah, you know what I'm going to say. So, okay, so number one, it's an interesting phenomena that we've seen that it is possible to grift. It is possible to gaslight people without personally gaslighting, right? So a movement can gaslight people, but everybody in the movement can be internally cohesive, right? So on the one hand, you have Antifa, let's say radical Black Lives Matter, whatever it is, anarchists burning the American flag, right? So they very much want to either overturn or they want a revolution or they think they want a revolution, right? So there's absolutely 100% overtly anti-American movements that are on the far left, right? And so when we talk about those people, we're like, yes, like they're very anti-American. Then there's the more subtle, this country sucks, this country is so fucked up, this country is systemically racist, this country is made by straight white men to benefit straight white men, and all the institutions need to be torn out by the root. Right now, that is what the right generally is calling anti-American, right? And that is what a lot of the protesters subscribe to, right? And so, to the degree to which they do that, you can talk about that all day. I personally subscribe to the idea that most of your opponents aren't as bad as you think they are. So we'll just let that sit. But let me just tie up that thing where I was saying that a movement can gaslight you, even though everybody inside of it is being internally consistent. So you have those radical people, and we can just talk about those and forget about the subtle ones. You have the radical people burning the flag, wanting a revolution, wanting to tear the country down. And then you have the people who are technically on the same side of the aisle who are saying, I don't want to do that. What are you talking about? Because they're not paying attention to their own radicals. They're like, what are you talking about? Nobody wants to tear this country down. I'm just as much of a patriot as you. Well, yeah, that's true. But a huge wing of your party wants to, right? So it's like this gaslighting where everybody's again internally consistent.
hey, I got to tell you, man, chat is they're asking for naked Lizzo.
It's coming. So, it's coming. Okay. Right. See, that was the proper amount of percolation right there.
Yeah. And I don't know what it is. I just want to say the word on stream because I can. Phenomenology. That's in chat. That word's in chat.
That word is wow.
Phenomenology.
We're moving up in the world if our chat can use that word.
I just wanted to show my word skills by saying,
right? Yeah, his literacy classes are coming along great. Everybody, all your donations, we're putting it to good use.
Dude, that's one of those. That's one of those. Can you say this words, man? Like that one doesn't just flow out. That one you gotta like.
Did you ever see the video of that guy? He's got like a deep Southern accent, and he says oil. He says all, and his wife is trying to make him say Rita in a Northern accent, and he's like, the truck was out of oil, and she just ends up cracking up, and it's hilarious. I recommend looking it up. Anyways, all right, on to Lizzo. Okay, so here's an interesting conversation to have.
That's not how I expected you to start this one.
There's an interesting conversation with this, right? Because, well, I mean, everything with me is serious, of course. It's got to be. There's always a deeper issue under all this bullshit. Otherwise, I wouldn't talk about it. But let's talk about fat shaming, right? So this was a big push more back in 2016, 2017. Still part of the movement, but it's something that. It's such a very hard conversation, right? So let's start with the basics, right? So it is medically accepted that it's healthy to be not fat, right? And that doesn't mean that skinny people are healthy, right? If you look at me, for example, before I worked out, not being active and being skinny genetically doesn't mean you're healthy, right? But it is certainly the case, generally speaking, that being obese is bad for your health, right? And we've known this forever. However, there has been a social movement around what's called body positivity, right? And we're gonna have to zoom in on this right here to talk about that. But the question becomes, I understand the left's insistence that body positivity, that taking care of your mental health, that not committing suicide if you're just because you don't look good. That's a good message, but as with everything that they do, I think they take it too far, right? And so too far is Lizzo feeling good about her body, and I hate to say that, right? It sounds like bullying, but if this woman doesn't lose weight, she's probably going to get a foot cut off, right? She's going to lose it to diabetes. She's going to die early. She's going to die in her 50s, maybe in her 60s, right? If she has really good health care. But so she posted a nude. Here we are. And it's I mean, there it is, right? So it's like,
is that a butt cup? Is her coffee?
Looks like it's
coffee
tough to
mug
tell
a butt?
it's all white, but there definitely seems to be.
I think it's a butt cup.
Now I thought you were talking about like a front butt. So all right, so this is getting gross real quick, but I don't know. I kind of want to hear what chat has to think about it, because there's you hear a whole bunch of different things. You'll hear that fat shaming works. It's like, well, if somebody shamed, like you'll hear stories about someone said, well, somebody called me fat, and I was like, well, fuck them, and then I lost 200 stone or whatever the British say. So one article that I read, but I don't know. There's so many different thoughts skittering off my head on this. It's like to what extent, I suppose, Tim, should we not just accept but celebrate obesity, right? And the kind of obesity here, which is the kind that makes you dead at 50 or 60, right?
I don't think we should celebrate obesity, or we should celebrate someone who's in shape, or we should celebrate someone who is anorexic or whatever.
Somebody who's in shape? And again,
not for the fact
I'm not necessarily in shape, right? So
not for the fact that they're in shape and look good, right? And like you made a comment earlier, like basically saying that Lizzo doesn't look good, right? Because you said something like, I forget the wording you used, but you basically said Lizzo doesn't look good.
I don't remember, but I would probably not.
And I'm fine with you saying I don't think Lizzo looks good. Like if you said that, but by just assuming and saying, well, she doesn't look good at all in general, right? That's kind of the issue with body shaming, right? Is like assuming what is good or bad from a look standpoint. So I think there's two issues. I think there's.
Do you think there's any such thing as objective standards of beauty?
I think beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? That's
subjective. You don't think there's anything objective to what makes, for example, a woman or a man look good?
There's two pieces to it.
By the way, we're talking
there's
looks
social
now, not health.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Right. Well, that's the point. Is body positivity isn't about saying I'm as healthy as I can be. It's about saying I'm comfortable with the way I look.
Right.
It's an appearance thing, not a physicality thing.
So, but you're talking about a healthy iteration of the movement that you might want to exist. Unfortunately, the movement exists. It's not just don't bully me for looking bad, it's not just don't bully me for looking bad. It's not only do I look good, it's that this is also healthy at any size, right? Healthy at any size is a phrase that is generated by this movement. And I mean, it's just, so first of all, if we're talking about straight looks, I mean, I think, this is really tough because you can't talk about this without sounding judgy, which is the whole point of it. I do believe there are objective standards of beauty, right? It's pretty eminently obvious. It's just kind of rude to point out. And there's
a more common, how do I want to say this? There's a higher statistical chance that somebody will find you beautiful if you look a specific way in any given culture. It depends on the culture.
Okay, so but that's interesting.
But even within that culture, it varies. Like, so a really, really good friend of mine has a completely different taste than me, right? We make perfect wingmen for each other because we would never go after the same girls, right?
Right.
And that's a subjective thing to beauty. Like we both were attracted to different people, and
yeah, that's true.
there wasn't anything wrong with it, right?
True. So I will concede right now, right away. Obviously, there are subjective elements to beauty, right? And all beauty is to some degree subjective, right? Especially if you start getting abstract like art,
Yeah.
Even there, I'm a fuddy-duddy. I don't do all that modern stuff, but I don't think a lot of people do.
So from the beauty side of it, right?
Yes.
To just close that side of the conversation, like with Lizzo or anyone else posting a picture of them, of themselves on the internet like that, and trying to or actually feeling beautiful in their own skin, that's hard enough for people that are actually, in achieving their goals, right? They may not feel they're all the way there, but they're to where they want to be. And so for people that aren't quite there, looking at like getting pictures and seeing these pictures of other people that look like them, that those people are confident in their own skin, can help you be the same way from a beauty standpoint. Okay, I'm not talking about striving. I'm not talking about striving to be unhealthy or teaching people to be unhealthy.
All right, so we can maybe we don't even need to go into that second conversation, right? So we will both agree that healthy at any size is probably bullshit, right? It's everybody, regardless of size, should exercise, and that exercise generally does decrease your size. But generally, obesity is a sign of unhealthiness, right? The more obese, the more unhealthy.
Well, I agree that being obese is unhealthy, but I disagree with the rest of your statement. I don't think that I have any sort of say that somebody should or shouldn't exercise or be a certain size or be a certain health level. If somebody wants to eat a cheeseburger, let them eat a damn cheeseburger, right? Like
right. Yeah, I'm not trying to impose an autocratic fitness regimen on people.
And so then what's your point? That if you eat too many cheeseburgers, you can't post on Instagram?
No, my point is that denying the truth of your health and your beauty is not helping anybody.
Well, again, you're going back to you just said denying your beauty.
I know, we still have to tie up the beauty end of it, but denying your health, saying healthy at any size is harmful, right? So if there is a movement where people uncomfortably accept the statement that you can be healthy at any size, the women that you spoke of who would be positively impacted by these photos then don't work on their self-image, which is, or rather, they don't address their weight, and those issues turn into long-term health issues, right? And a lot of people are not aware.
Where do you draw the line of healthy?
I don't. I don't.
You have to be drawing it somewhere to say.
I will draw an unhealthy line around that. That's not healthy.
Okay, so first, what about that isn't healthy? So if she just came back from the doctor and every single one of her core stats were in perfect condition, what are you saying is not healthy? The potential that she's going to have a future health issue? It increases her risk?
So unfortunately, I'm not a doctor. I'm just aware that being obese is unhealthy, right? So
it's an increase in risk factor. It in and itself doesn't necessarily have to be unhealthy. It can be. I'm probably more unhealthy due to my weight than her because my fat is all what's the word? It's the beneath the skin, starts with a V or something.
Versus 2.
Visceral? No, that's not right, but that's close. It's close. It's visceral. It's visceral. It's visceral fat, right? So all my fat is like around my organs, packed between my lung and my heart and all of that. But my arms, like my arms are pretty skinny and like pretty lean, right? And my legs are too. I weigh 280 pounds.
Right.
But I don't look like it. I don't get judged for being fat. I'm probably more unhealthy than she is.
So, all right. So here's the thing with this. This is just massively complicated, like every single issue. So number one, body image is much rougher on women than it is for men, right? As a matter of fact, there's a whole genre of women who enjoy dad bods, right? That is an actual body type.
Thank God.
Okay. Right.
Thank you. Thank you, girls. Saying, right? Thank you. So then I suppose we can poke right back into the beauty standards, and then maybe we can close up because we didn't make this a major topic. But again, so I completely deny your statement
that there is no such thing as objective beauty standards. I understand there's subjective elements, like you can prefer black hair, you can prefer, blondes, you can prefer tall, you can prefer, slightly more heavy set or skinnier, right? There's a whole bunch of preferences. And then there's people who, straight up have, fat fetishes, right? So there is a gambit, but there are things that biologically, objectively, people look for, right? And this is true. And one of the primary indicators of youth in women is a narrow waist, right? And that sounds judgy and it sounds horrible to say, but that's like men are subconsciously looking for that, right? That is true. That is an objective standard that most men feel when they look at a woman, right? And so it's like you can yell and cry about that all day long, but at the end of the day, like that's how we are as humans, right? There's other things too. It's like there's objective standards, right? If your face is symmetrical, that is by definition beauty, right? You are a beautiful person the more symmetrical your face is, right? If you don't have blemishes, right? Blemishes are automatically, they take away from your beauty, right? These are objective things, and it's like, it sounds like I don't know. It sounds like I'm being harsh, but I mean, I guess I am. I don't know. It's not an easy conversation to have.
It is. I think it is, and I think it's not easy for you because you kind of realize you're probably being a little bit
I
in the wrong.
100% am being an asshole, but that's kind of where I actually started the conversation. To what extent can you or should you, as a society, be the asshole and say, no, you probably should lose some weight?
I mean, should we as a society tell people they can't drink because drinking can be unhealthy? What about smoking? What about
the converse?
Anything?
The issue, Tim, the issue is the converse. Should we lie to young women and say you are just as attractive at that weight as you would be if you lost 30 pounds? Right? And that sounds horrible, but should we say that to them? Because that's objectively not true. Right? Should we also lie to them and say you will be just as healthy at that weight if you continue eating like that and not having a good lifestyle than if you lost those 30 pounds and ate healthy?
I don't think we should lie to anybody about anything. But
that's what I'm saying. This whole movement is essentially a lie. It's healthy at any size, beauty at any weight.
You can be healthy and you can be healthy and be overweight.
I understand there's
you can be beautiful and be overweight.
I get it. It's a risk factor. I understand that. But for example, if you maintain that unhealthy weight, your risk goes up the longer you maintain that unhealthy weight. So if somebody were influenced by the body positivity movement to be comfortable in that skin, and then because of that, they don't lose weight, that movement has done that person a disservice because it lied to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a lot of services, just like things that do that. I mean, if you want to go down that road, we can talk about basically any religion that was ever created. Maybe we should just remove those from society.
I disagree with that, but that's complicated.
Yeah, we've had that conversation before, but
we've tried. That's a big one. That's like a 3-part series.
Yeah. So series. No, I actually think in my opinion, you're way off base.
You think so? Okay. Well,
yeah.
Maybe we can do more of a segment on it.
Yeah, let's do. Be an interesting talk. I want to show a picture of a turtle.
I can't see you. Can producer Scotty? Can you see him?
I see myself on the YouTubes. So here's a turtle, and it is Mitch McConnell. I just always think he looks kind of like a turtle. So the meme says Kentucky spends $2.41 of every federal funding for every dollar they contribute, but they hate socialism. Makes sense. So okay, the bottom part is obviously a dig, but I kind of look at the top part and it's interesting to me. I didn't know that. And I haven't fact checked this. So if this is wrong, I am totally sorry. I usually do try and fact check these. I didn't get a chance to fact check them all this time. So this one could be complete BS. But assuming it's true, any thoughts or just an interesting fact?
No, it's an optics lose. That's it. They can still all believe in that. And you know what? And here's the thing. I guarantee if you asked every member of the state of Kentucky whether they thought they were taking in more than they were getting, or whether they were taking in more than they were giving, none of them would know that. So it's like it's possible to be gaslit by a movement with everybody being internally consistent. All those blood red meat red Republicans in Kentucky, I guarantee they have no idea of that fact.
I mean, but do you think if they learned of that fact, they would say, well, okay, we don't want more than we're actually contributing?
I'm sure. I'm not gonna mince words there. I'm sure they would rationalize it away.
It was just a question, but yeah. I didn't think that one was gonna be a huge talk, but I thought it was an interesting data point.
I know. You keep bringing up things that I scroll past really fast on Reddit. It's like those fucking lefties.
So did you scroll past this one then?
Show me.
If a monkey hoarded more bananas than it could eat, while most of I'll start over. If a monkey hoarded more bananas than it could eat, while most of the other monkeys starved, scientists would study that monkey to figure out what the heck was wrong with it. When humans do it, we put them on the cover of Forbes. I'm not sure I've ever seen a cover of Forbes that said the person with the most bananas, but
right.
I mean, I could have just missed that. I could have missed that one.
Would definitely be Elon Musk. If he converted all of his Bitcoin into bananas, I'm sure he would have the most bananas.
So obviously this is talking about wealth inequality, and
it's just a shitty way to look at the world.
And it's trying to compare, the natural way of things, if you will, within the animal kingdom or whatever, and how we see it, and how social packs in the animal kingdom would act versus us.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any value to that comparison, or do you think that it's apples to bananas?
It's absolute trash is what it is. It's just the worst. So number one, in the United States, like, let's just talk about the United States as a system. There's almost, if you are not mentally ill, right, like severely mentally ill, there's nobody starving in this country at all, right? There's nobody starving. The biggest problem for poor people as far as food is obesity, right? So the idea that we're hoarding all of the bananas in one spot, while there's a whole bunch of, other monkeys starving, it's stupid, right? And then
so now you're drawing the line around the country. So expand that to the world. There's a massive portion of the world that is starving.
Yeah. So I'll just share this little tidbit. Now, fact check me on this, but I believe every day since I think it's like 1980, every single day, on average, about 128,000 people have come out of poverty. And this is because of that system that she's trying to cutely rip down on Twitter, right? So free market capitalism is raising hundreds of thousands of people a day out of poverty, right? And this is because because of this shitty one pie analogy that the left uses for economics. They just think, oh, there's 8 million bananas and Jeff Bezos has 7 million of them. So the rest of us have to pass around the other, 1 million bananas. Where it's like, no, Jeff Bezos created 7 million extra bananas that he now has, right? And he traded for freely, right? The other monkeys gave him their bananas for the other banana that he gave them, right? It's just such an asinine, comparison. So again, nobody is starving in this country. And then if you open it up to the world, worldwide, 128,000 people a day, every single day since the 80s came out of poverty because of the free market capitalism that this woman is, again, having a snarky tweet about, and she knows absolutely nothing about.
So your argument is we can't do better because we're doing pretty good.
No, my argument is there is a strong desire to rip down the economic system that is causing millions of people to come out of poverty.
I don't know her, and I don't know anything else about her tweets, but when I read this, my initial assumption wasn't we need to tear down capitalism and go to socialism. My assumption was maybe. I don't know her. You said you've seen a couple tweets by her, so you may know better than me. But when I read this, my assumption was, let's look at ways to reduce the wealth inequality, not let's get rid of capitalism.
Why would we do that?
I feel like what?
Why would we reduce wealth inequality? Who cares?
So that's a whole nother conversation, and I wasn't trying to get into that per se. I'm just saying that's the level of change that I took from the intent from this.
Right. But it's
post.
Redistribution, or it's some kind of autocratic control, like authoritarian control, because this is how people stack up in the relatively free capitalist system we have. So in order to change that, you have to then affect authoritarian rules in some way or another, whether it's just straight up redistribution or limiting capital, whatever it is. And I'm just not here for it. Like these people just don't understand how basic economics works. And I say that as somebody who doesn't have an economics degree. These people are fucking illiterate.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of economics discussions, and I'm going to go on ahead and say you're pretty far down there.
I'm aware, and I'm telling you, this person knows even less than I do. For the record, everybody, I didn't know what stocks were actually. I didn't. It still haunts me to this day. What did I think? I thought stocks were owned by the company, right? And then people would, I don't know what, like rent the share. I don't even know what I thought now.
I don't remember either. I remember when you told me, when I was telling you what they were, and you said, no, they're this. I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I work in this industry.
What are you talking about? First off, yeah. I had never heard that.
There's a Tim out there somewhere for you.
Yeah.
All right, I
can be your Tim Timmleberry.
Huh? I got one more. So this again, this could be a huge topic, but I just want to say a few words about this and see what you think about it. I think we've mentioned this a couple times in our conversations. So for anybody who's just listening, this is an article that I have. It's talking about the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin case, right? And it says the Minnesota Attorney General tells 60 Minutes, we didn't have evidence George Floyd's killing was a hate crime. Right. And this right here is, ding, 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 ding. You get the answer right. Pass go, $200, get some candy, whatever. Right. So here is
Let's see this evidence.
Problem.
What's the evidence? I want to see.
There is no evidence. That's the point.
Isn't that what the title says?
Didn't have evidence.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it said we have evidence.
Right,
I'm like, what?
Well,
where did this come from?
No. Well,
okay.
So that is exactly the point, Tim.
And my literacy rate went back down.
Right, yeah. Okay. We're back to square one. I'm gonna have to tell your tutor. He's gonna bring the ruler next time.
Shit.
Okay, so here's my point real quick. We don't have to ruminate on this. We're going to be talking generally about sort of Black Lives Matter related issues a little bit later, but there's this serious problem that the right keeps trying to point out, but since we don't hold any of the cultural totems and we're all siloed, nobody hears about this on the left, right? They just kind of get to comfortably move through life, assuming that all of these Black Lives Matter incidents are caused by racism, right? They just, when I say they, I mean almost every single one of them. I do, like, seems to be, to me, maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, seems to me the rule is that people on the left will, without evidence, say that a white on black killing is the cause of racism, right? It was a racist killing, right? And there's some funny arguments with systemic racism, but critically say Derek Chauvin killing George Floyd, that was because of racism, right? And then you watch the trial.
I wouldn't say most people. I don't know anybody in person. And I haven't, seen too many people on media across the board saying that they felt like this was racist. There are definitely those that do, especially on the left media, but I would not in any way, shape, or form say most people. I mean, if you say 50% of the countries, I don't even think most people on the left.
All right, well, that's what I'm trying to critique. I'm not talking. I think the vast majority of Republicans wouldn't say that it's racist.
Yeah, I would imagine not.
But like, here's. Let me just say this for people in the audience: take something that right? Something real simple, like the Earth is round. Let's say most of you believe that, right?
It's not as flat.
Oh, stop it, Timothy. We're gonna have to get you a whole bunch of different tutors. I know Ohio is flat. Actually, not where you are, right?
It's hilly. It's
It's
bumpy.
hilly where you are. I remember driving
Yeah,
through.
we have
Ohio,
acne.
just watching the barley go by. Anyways, so take the proposition that the Earth is round, or all of these Black Lives Matter incidents are the cause of racism, and just start asking yourself questions about that. Could you prove to me yourself with facts that you know that the Earth is round, right? And I would say the same thing. I'm taking this. We can put that on the Black Lives Matter protester. With the facts that you know right now, can you definitively prove to me that any of these killings were because of racism? And the answer should be no, because many of these, there is absolutely no proof of it. And so if there's no proof of it, why would you say it?
I think that's a very bad approach. I mean, I get where you're coming from, and I want to agree with you. But the problem is,
what do you think's wrong with it?
Racism in general is difficult to prove, right? It's a state of mind, and a state of mind is generally difficult to prove.
Okay. All right. And so then the conversation also gets, it's more difficult about what you do with that information, right? So I would probably be directing this speech more at people who are doing something about the thing that they're saying, right? So if you're let's say you're a podcaster and you're talking about social issues, if you confidently say, right, and let's say you have a large audience, let's say millions of people, right, and you confidently say this was because of racism, and then you don't bother backing it up, I have more of a problem with you than somebody who just thinks it and doesn't do anything about it, right? But if you're out there protesting about it, if you're affecting change because of it, and you haven't bothered examining the underlying fact of whether this was racist, then I have a problem with that, right? I think it's damaging, right? And I think it's, I think people on the left are too comfortable, right? I don't think anybody calls them out. I don't know. That's a bigger conversation too. Getting catty.
Yeah, there's a lot of big conversations to be had. I mean, the next news article I had, I just want to show it. I don't want to talk about it because we won't ever get away. But this could be a good topic for another one. We've talked in the past about Twitter's censorship of different things, and we definitely talked about Twitter censoring
what the heck?
Hacked materials from the Biden laptop.
Yeah,
and so
which wasn't hacked definitionally.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So again, not to get back into not to pull band-aids off of old wounds that still haven't healed over there, Wolverine. So this one I thought was interesting because it kind of, my argument, I actually felt like Twitter did the right thing when they censored it. And then when they came back out and said, oh yeah, okay, now we have more information, we won't censor it. I was okay with that. I felt like they did the right thing there. And so I saw this one and I was like, huh. And I started reading it, and basically they changed their policy after the whole Hunter Biden thing, and are now only going to censor if it is a direct share of a website or a link to or whatever, the actual hacked material. You are allowed to discuss it and do other things, which was not the policy back then, right? Back then it was like if you were discussing and sharing, these things, I think they were blocking it. So they have already changed the policy. They changed it some months ago. And then this happened where people were discussing apparently just the hacked content about who gave him some money for his legal defense. And they didn't censor that. So
listen, man, it's hard to be conservative, man. Look at this. It's just like, listen, I mean, we're talking about a lot of gaslighting tonight, but Twitter censoring a damaging story on the eve of an election, and then now, months after that said election, they've reversed their policy, and now another, conservative or libertarian gets winged because they reversed their policy. It's just kind of frustrating. It's also selection bias. I'm sure there's other hack stuff that they've put out that damaged other stuff. But
so it might be interesting to compare them, though. Yeah, it might be interesting to compare them. I don't know, but I don't want to get into it too deep because it would take us.
Guys, we got
all night, but
we got stuff to talk about.
Yeah,
we can do these first two a little quick here. So I wanted to switch to DC. Are you okay with that?
Yeah,
All right,
I already got my flag and everything. And to Amanda, to your point, you talked about a flag. If we added DC as a state, that is the flag behind me. The flag behind me has 51 stars on it.
It is. I
So
don't know what side I'm on. It's him. He's got it.
uh,
Yeah. So
Nate's over there.
are you sure? You can do that. I can't. Wait. So if you're doing that and I'm mirrored, Tim's over there. Okay.
I'm on your right.
My right. That's my right.
Yep.
Right there. All right. Got it. Okay. So DC as a state. So apparently this is being reviewed right now. I think this might even be a bill that's going through Congress right now. And that would probably be starting in the House because it would just be dead in the Senate. And it will be dead in the Senate. So this is probably not going to happen, right? Because we got Joe Manchin, the champion of the people, holding down the most radical elements of his party. Thank God for him. Should be a saint, I think, right? I mean, people have done less to become saints. Anyways, so we kind of wanted to talk about the idea of DC statehood, and I don't think you're for it, are you, Tim? Or are you?
DC statehood?
Yeah.
I had not a lot of information about it before we decided to talk about it, so I did some research. Generally, no, probably not.
Generally, no.
I'm more ambivalent than I would say anything, but the thing that really gets me is, I feel like I don't feel like it has the right drive behind it. I know I'm kind of
the correct motivation.
The fact that it's just going to add another senator that is almost guaranteed to be Democrat.
Oh, guaranteed. 76% of the constituency is Democrat. 6%
but
Republican.
That's because Republicans haven't been able to gerrymander it yet.
Oh God. Can you imagine trying 76%? I don't know if it's possible, man. Yeah, just wait. We got some skilled gerrymanderers.
Yeah, so I mean, so that's one thing to where, anyway, I'd say let's talk about the points before I make a decision. I'm pretty ambivalent, but
so let me give you my rundown on it. Let's see if maybe I can. I don't know if I would sway you. I'm just putting facts out there and putting the right's opinion on it. So okay, so let's have the meta conversation first, right? The same thing when we talk about voter suppression. There are things beneath the surface that just nominally benefit Republicans and nominally benefit Democrats, right? Again, right, if we go back to that conversation, it's the more people vote, the more the Democrats gain, and then the less people vote, the more the Republicans gain, right? So they put forward bills and they say this bill is to combat this, but what it's really doing is in small ways they're reducing this and they're coming out benefit for their party, right?
So it's very identity political of you.
It's, how the show goes, I guess. Well, I'm just acknowledging reality, right? And it's the same thing where I'm just acknowledging the reality of this situation. Washington, D.C. is 76% Democrat with 6% or 9% Republicans and a bunch of independents in there, right? So the point is this, whatever they're telling you, and they will tell you a whole bunch of stuff about why DC should be a state. They'll say a couple things like the population doesn't have representation and this whole country was founded on the idea of a population having representation. They'll tell you all sorts of stuff, but at the end of the day, this is only happening so that the Democrats can get 2 extra seats in Congress. Right?
Okay, but let's go back to those points. Like, yep. I don't think it's a fair thing to do and say, well, they're going to tell you these things, but ignore those because that's not what benefits them. That's just what they're telling you.
Political. I'm not.
That's
saying
fine. But let's talk about the underlying reasons. Like,
right. Okay.
Does it make sense?
That's why I said let's talk the meta first. So that is the meta. This is 100% being driven by those politics. That doesn't mean there aren't reasons that we can't talk about, and I love talking about this reason. So I mean, here we go.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is an interesting idea there, right? And it is a very conservative, love the founders idea, which is no taxation without representation, right? And as it stands, DC just has a mayor, right? They don't have, I believe they have somebody who observes. I don't know. I just learned about that today. Apparently they don't have a senator, but they have somebody who sits in, I guess, an observer or something like that. But they basically, they don't have senators. They don't have, the other thing? God, representative. Man.
No,
they don't have any federal representation, right? Except for the fact that the federal seat of power is literally in there.
Right. Confirm for me. Chat just asked, and I'm pretty sure they can't vote in like federal elections and things, right?
Don't know if that's true.
I think they cannot. I'm pretty sure they cannot. They may be able to vote for the president.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if they can. So the whole idea, the reason that is from my understanding that the founders separated Washington D.C. from everything and made it so that it didn't have a senator and that they didn't have representation. And I thought that they couldn't vote was because they didn't want the seat of the capital, the state in which the seat of the capital, to have more pull or say or sway because the capital's there. Right. So, they didn't want it to affect the people.
For everybody who forgot about their, third grade lessons, this is a map of DC, right? And this up here is what is it, Delaware? God, see, now I'm forgetting. This one down here is Virginia. Don't ever go to this state, by the way. State is just horrible. I hate it.
So that's a map of old DC.
Like what? I
believe it was Virginia took their land back.
Yeah, I saw modern ones. All this stuff down here. Well, this is where the Pentagon is. This is where like Arlington Cemetery is. Right.
Yeah,
here.
all the yellow stuff down there is actually part of the state of Virginia.
Yes, but everything up here, this is all DC right here.
Yeah.
So again, this was deliberately carved out. There's a clause in the Constitution. I'll just read that real quick. That gives Congress the power to carve out this land. Right. It's actually pretty broad. It's not very specific. So, oh God, and I hate the wording too. But it basically says. Congress has the power to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district as may, by cessation of particular states and acceptance of Congress, right? It's very wordy, become the seat of the government of the United States and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature, so blah, 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 right? So this is the provision not to exceed 10 miles square that was put into the Constitution to make this happen, right? So this was deliberate. Now, the interesting thing is that this doesn't say that this has to be the seat of government, right? This doesn't say that the seat of government can't be in a state. It just says this is how you set it up if you're setting this up. So legally, looks like they can do it, but a lot of people are saying that you'll need an amendment, but I don't see that you need an amendment.
From what I understand, that it would need an amendment to put the government into a state, but the intent is to, rather than do that, take everything but basically the White House. What's that area called? Damn it. My brain's not working on it.
Mall? National Mall?
Yeah, the National Mall. Thank you. But basically take everything but the National Mall and turn it into the state of Washington, D.C., and then the seat of government is still its own
that's
entity.
So freaking arbitrary.
As whatever. Well,
right, I mean,
and it's saying that the seat of government is the White House and Congress, right? So
right. So here's the thing. Like, this one is so nakedly partisan that there's such a glaringly obvious answer to that, right? If you care about those people so much and you want to give them representation, give them back to the state from whence the land came. Why are you making a whole new state? And the answer, you're making a whole new state because you want 2 more senators.
That was my thought when I first was listening to all this. I'm like, so just give the land back to Delaware, or I'm sorry, Maryland. God, Maryland. You messed me up with your
Maryland
dumbassedness earlier. So give the land back to Maryland, and those people become integrated into that voting group, and it is what it is.
Which is the obvious answer, right? I mean, we didn't just make this a separate state when we gave it back to Virginia. We just gave it back to Virginia.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I say I'm torn, my thing is, there's more people in Washington D.C. that reside in Washington D.C. than reside in several other states in this country. So we have large amounts of people. This isn't like, oh, it's just a city or something, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a large amount of people that live in this area that don't get the same representation as everybody else. And so, the big thing for me that I was thinking about was they don't have representation in Congress or in the House, and they have to pay federal taxes. They still have to put their money in the pot, but they don't technically get to say, hey, this is how I think the pot should be spent. So for me, that's wrong. I don't know that it warrants. I mean, if you really don't like that, move a couple miles outside the border.
That's the thing. I wonder if we read the same article with some.
So that square, just so people know, that square is 10 mile by 10 mile. Like it's not a huge area, right? You could easily decide, I don't want to live in Washington, D.C. I would rather live here or there and commute to work if you needed to.
Right. So even when this was a full square, anywhere in this square, you were not more than 5 miles away from the border. That's how math works. I did go to college. But like at most of the time, like if you live here,
you didn't have to drive on a road, but you do, so you very well could have.
As the crow flies, Timothy. How dare you?
I'm not sure. I'm not Iron Man, bro. Are you Iron Man? Do you have a flying suit? I don't have one. I want one. Can you give me one? I'll move to DC if you can give me one.
Oh God. Anyways, so there's that too. It's I don't. It's one of those things. It's like it's not like you exist in a colony and then the king across the ocean changes the bargain, right? Which is one story, I suppose, right? But it's this has been around since the founding of this country. Maybe if you were one of the original people who got caught up in it, I would have a little sympathy for you. But it's 2021. If you live here, you moved here, right? Generally speaking, I don't have too much sympathy.
Be born there, come on, dude.
Plus, you can move right there.
And don't they have their own sports teams and stuff too?
Yeah, the Redskins.
Yeah. So, I mean, this isn't as big of an issue, I think, as we need to make it out to be either, because it's very, very unlikely to pass the Senate.
It is. Yeah. Not going to happen. So,
the House did pass it. I don't, it is what it is. I don't think it's a valid thing. If we're going to do a 51st state, let's start talking to some of our territories and see if people want in, Now I think we talked about this before and somebody said Puerto Rico doesn't want in. I got a hold of my relative. I think it was, but it could have been Chris or it could have been a ghost. I don't know. I got a hold of my relative and he said it's like 50-50. He said, some people really do want it and other people don't. It's not a hard thing.
Yeah, because from what I understand, I mean, there would be give take, right? I mean, they would probably lose some things that they like, but then, they're part of the country. But it's like, I don't know. I mean, they would get
they have some freedoms. They have some they would get more guaranteed federal funding.
Right.
If Trump gets reelected, they would have potential to get some funding. Yeah. So anyway, I think this one for me, my vote would be exactly what you said. Let's just put it back into the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
Give Maryland 2 more senators and call it a day.
No, you know what? No. They just used Maryland. Jesus Christ, giving me a heart attack. Okay, all right. So we hit that up. Did I just exit out of? Oh, I might have. No, I didn't. Okay. So the Supreme Court, right? So speaking of naked power grabs, Joe Biden has put together a quote unquote bipartisan committee to study improving the Supreme Court, which means they're looking at packing the court. That's what that means. Now, before we get into this, okay, so there's 9 Supreme Court justices. I think this could be 2 things, Tim. Right? I wonder if you agree with me. This is my honest to God analysis. This committee that he's put together, this could be 2 things. This could be 1, the preparation to do exactly what we think he's going to try to do. On his worst day, this could be it. He could be spooling up to pack the court, but it also could be his excuse to say, oh, the bipartisan committee studied it and they found out that it was a bad idea. I tried. Sorry. Right. So like sort of like save face to the progressives who really want this. Right. Does that make sense? What do you think? You think that? Or is there another option I'm not thinking of?
It could be that he's actually like, hey, let's investigate this and see where it falls out.
But do you think it could be that it's just a face-saving measure? It's like, hey, I put the committee together.
I think it could be any of the. I think it could be any of those three.
Yeah.
I think if I was doing a face-saving measure, I would have probably done a more bipartisan committee.
Well, he said. I said, quote unquote, sarcastically. He's saying like there's Republicans and Democrats on there. I have not.
There are, but it's like 80-20 or something. It's
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I think I would have done something more equal if I was really just looking to save face or truly just wanted a. I don't know. I don't think I'd put Republicans on there to get an honest answer, but to get a.
What if you?
I mean, you're
in charge of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't put most Democrats either. So I mean, it's not a partisan thing to say. Like, I don't think you get an honest answer from a lot of the politicians. But
no, and that's one of those things too. So people don't realize it. If you get put, so first of all, if the point of that committee, even if it's quote unquote bipartisan, if the point of that committee is to get Joe Biden the answer he wants, and the answer he wants is to back the court, what happens is you can make it bipartisan, but you know what all of these senators want. And if you put a Republican on there, it's because that's the Republican that's most amenable to this idea of packing the court, right? Now, as it turns out, I'm pretty sure there aren't any, right? Because that's suicide to pack the court, right? And there's a whole bunch of obvious issues, which I suppose we can get into with this, is that I think issue number one is that if the Democrats pack the courts and if they pack the court and they bring it up to 13, which is what I think they want to do, the Republicans are just going to come back in when they get power and they're going to pack it again, right? So they'll put 4 more justices in there. And it's, the question is why and when would we stop that cycle? That's problem number one. Why and when would we stop packing the court? And then the institution is just defunct.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've heard that argument, and I don't disagree. I think that if the Democrats pack the court, if Republicans ever get power again, when Republicans get power again, they'll probably try and do the same, and then it'll go back, and they'll do the same. But I think that argument is kind of a little bit of a slap in the face in a way to the Democrats, because that argument started when they were saying, look, like, we need to wait for this election. Trump's on his way out. He shouldn't be appointing somebody this close to all of this going on. And it was done anyway. Take it a step back further. That shit was, maybe something similar was done in the past with the Democrats. And like, so it's one of those things where by whoever starts this war some 100 million years ago, before the U.S. existed, right? Of doing the wrong thing that is within the realm of the law or possibility because it benefits you, even though you know it's wrong, started this cycle of that shit happening all the fucking time now, right? Like,
yeah.
And so I don't like that argument to say, well, if the Democrats start it now, because it didn't just start now. It's been going on.
Court packing
is the next step. It's the next step.
So there are certainly other issues that we've gone back and forth on. And I haven't fact checked this, but according to Ben Shapiro, it is actually kind of ironic because Supreme Court nominees used to kind of just like sail through. Like they would talk, they would have to speak before Congress, but Congress would generally just ask them questions and pass them along through. It doesn't matter who was appointing it. Apparently, the first person to really rip into, in a political way, a candidate was Joe Biden. Apparently, it's I forget the guy's name. Is like Borkin or something like that.
I mean,
he was like the progenitor for all this crap that eventually culminated in Brett Kavanaugh being accused of raping somebody back in the 70s.
I wonder if the guy legitimately was like not a good pick, but was getting was getting picked, or if it was the beginning of the political argument. Like I don't know anything about that.
I don't know. Again, first of all, haven't fact checked that statement from Ben Shapiro, obviously. But then number two, I don't know if he was just a bad candidate. I don't even know what Joe Biden was grilling him on.
So my general thought on packing the court is if they were going to do it, which the House passed. Did they pass a bill, or they were proposing a bill
It's not up to. I don't think Congress has anything to do with that. It's the government's. It's the president's power to appoint.
I think that's not 100% true, or what I heard was wrong. Because when I was listening to things about this, they were talking about how the process is being put in motion, and I thought it was coming from the House to get this started. And they were complaining because it's like 6 months before the report is supposed to come out. The report's not supposed to come out until later this year, but they're already starting to try and get this done or do the process. And so,
well, are they schooling up to have hearings? Because they need to have hearings.
I don't know.
Yeah, that might be it, right? That's probably what. And I'd have to look into that, but that's probably because they cannot. Yeah. It's the president's power to nominate, right? And then Congress has to vet them and approve them.
It might be that there has to be. I mean, is there something that says there's only 9?
No,
and it's not. It's not in the Constitution, but is there any legal document that says right?
No.
But
there's,
I don't know.
There's a Judiciary Act of 1869. That's when the court went up from 8 to 9. And I think there was some politics around Civil War when that happened, and it was also that I think again it was nominally, even though there was politics under it, it was nominally to make it so that you couldn't have a hung court essentially, right? You can't just have an 4-4 split and then what do we do with it? So now with 9 justices, obviously you can't divide that evenly in half. It's either going to be 4-5 or 5-4.
Yeah.
Or, some other variation, but there won't be any ties. So, I mean, 9's a great number, man.
I mean, they're looking to add 3. So I was going to say add 2. If you add 3, then it makes it an even number. So that's not good. So maybe I am good with adding 2. And then it still leaves the Republicans with a +1. Maybe they won't be so butthurt. And then everybody's happy. But generally, I don't necessarily think they should be doing it. I think it's shitty. If you go back, I remember saying I think it's shitty that the Republicans pushed through as many as they did in a political way that they did.
All of those criticisms were completely unfounded. We did a huge podcast on this, but we did.
Yeah, and we disagreed. You're wrong. There was legitimate reason why they shouldn't have pushed through the third one. The other two were just fine.
Political bullshit.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to our podcast. When was that? It was like November time or something like that.
But I don't actually have too much of a strong opinion on this anymore. Other than I don't think they should do it.
Yeah, the only drive is political. And I mean, let's just think let's forget about politics for a second. Once you like 9, I feel like genuinely is a good number. Like anything like 6 might have been good, or maybe like 7. 7's probably a good number because you get a whole bunch of different opinions. Maybe even 5, right? 5's not too bad. Even I don't know. Like
13's a great number. It's a prime number.
Yeah, exactly.
I
don't know.
Get to 13. 13's good. That's the same number as colonies as we had. Like everything.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. Is that true? 13 colonies? That was just in my head. I don't actually know if that's true.
Let's see. Okay, so for the main event. Okay, so there's been a spate of other shootings, and since Chris isn't here, I try to be as fair as possible. But I'm just going to go ahead and say the left is searching their hardest for the next George Floyd. Right? They're looking for their cause du jour. It's coming into prime protesting season. If they don't have a good thing to protest, I don't know. Listen, I don't know. I'm sorry. But look, I think it's true. I think there is some truth to that. And I try my very best and always fail not to talk about the underlying motivations of my opponents. But I think, Tim, this country doesn't have religion anymore. And so people are looking for a cause. And for a lot of people, that cause is It's Black Lives Matter. It's Antifa in general, right? I myself am a victim of that. And they're looking hard. And so one of the ones, I think, right, so that's my statement. That's not Tim's. And one of the incidents that they're looking at real hard is the Ma'Khia Bryant shooting. And Tim, you have that footage, correct?
Got some stuff.
So we'll go ahead and show this for people on audio. We'll tell you exactly what happened right after if you're not aware of it. But go ahead, Tim, when you have it.
All right. So here's the shooting. It happens pretty quick. So like 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's not long.
Hey. What's going on? Hey, what's going on? Hey, get down!
And that was the shooting. So we didn't really give the background. I don't want to leave it up just because I think that's not a good scene to just leave sitting there. But the background is, the officer got called for somebody pulling a knife on people.
Yeah.
I think the 911 call was like, she's pulling a knife, she's trying to stab us, like something like that, right?
Trying to stab, probably put hands on her grandma or something like that. And allegedly, that was Ma'Khia that made that call, which is interesting if true.
I actually, from what I understand, it was the girl in pink. Like I keep hearing that allegedly it was Ma'Khia, but from what I've been reading, it was actually the girl in pink there.
Okay.
So when I started this, the cop had just gotten out of the car. He pulled up, got out of the car, started walking up. So he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And then Ma'Khia comes charging out with a knife, takes the one girl down to the ground. I don't know that she stabbed her. I think she missed or didn't.
I don't think she did.
Gets up and then goes after the girl in pink. At that point, the cop had seen the knife and is yelling at her, get down, like stop. I wish he'd have said something about the knife. Just maybe that would have triggered.
Drop it.
Something. Yeah, but I get
or
like
I'll
I mean,
shoot, like this. It's tough. Look. So I mean, honestly, we're critiquing.
That's not
something.
That's not me. That's not me.
No, I know.
It's valid. I'm just saying, like this. I feel like that. I would have liked to have heard that here, but I don't think he did necessarily anything wrong. It's just like, that could have been a little better. And then, so if you look at it, I don't have the right scene pulled up. I showed it again, but Ma'Khia has the knife pulled out and is like in mid thrust to put that knife into the girl.
She's swinging with it. She has it.
And so he fires and hits her. And I mean, my first thought when I saw this, when he fired, was like, damn, that is a risky shoot. There are people everywhere. She's trying to stab the girl. She's standing right in front of her. Like there's such a high chance that one of those bullets miss and hit the girl that he's trying to save.
It's true. It's true.
So I my first thought was that is a really risky shoot, but I don't believe he missed. I think all four hit her. And so maybe he just, had faith in his abilities, and seemingly rightly so, that he would be able to have accurate control. But it's a terrible situation. I mean, you don't want any altercation like this to result in a death of somebody in deadly force. And I think that's something both sides 100% agree with and aren't good at communicating with each other. I think the focus falls off of that and onto some of the detail in between. But the bottom line is, like, it's not just something people say. It's not like, this was a tragedy. They don't just say that because, sometimes they're saying it because they have to. But
obviously it's just me. But like even the people that.
But you're not saying it. You're not saying it just because you don't want backlash. You're saying it because you truly believe it's a tragedy, right?
Yes,
and that's the point I was trying to say.
Yeah, right. And it's like, like obviously, like anybody who could say, for example, use a force pull on her or just lock her in place or prevent her from doing what she's doing in any other way than shooting her, any of us on any side of this issue would want that to happen. Right? And it's like, this is a tragedy in the sense that, not in the sense that the cop saved the girl's life or saved her from a stabbing or a maiming, in the sense that Micaiah was obviously so enraged that she threw away her life at the relative beginning of her life, right? And there was no need for it.
Yeah, she was what, 16?
Yeah, she was 16, right? And it's like, I mean, we don't know. We still don't know why she was that angry.
No, we do.
We know.
Yeah, because from what I heard, the original belief was that she called, or somebody called and said these girls showed up and they're attacking me and whatever. It turns out that those girls are foster sisters or something. So Micaiah had been living there for 2 years. She's in the foster system. Her foster parents, I guess, live there. And these girls either used to live there or still do, or part-time do. I don't know. But her foster mom, it was her foster mom's birthday party. And so these girls showed up for that. And they told Micaiah that she needs to clean her room or something like that because her foster mom hates it when the room is dirty or whatever. And so they started to get in a fight about this. It literally was about something mundane like that. But, and so it escalates, and as things do, right? It's not about why things escalated per se.
Yeah.
Things can escalate. So it escalates, right? But somehow it turns into a knife. I mean, that's a big escalation, and like, I get like having a knife and threatening that to me is still wrong, but that's a whole different level than like literally pinning somebody. And as far as you can tell from the video, attempting to stab somebody.
Right. Yeah, very, 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 very obviously. I mean, she had this thing in this kind of grip where she's holding it like this, and she's coming up like this and going down, and then he shoots her. I mean, very, very obviously attempting to at least slice or stab the woman in pink.
Yeah, it's really
so let's talk about. So I suppose that the big story here is less the story and more the reactions, right? So the story seems to be pretty straightforward, right? And most rational people, a lot of people, and we were talking about this, a lot of people have come to the conclusions like, yes, the cop was in the correct, the cop did the correct thing, right? The cop doesn't have telekinesis. He doesn't have any other effective weapons, right? The taser, highly inaccurate, not guaranteed to work. The Micaiah was in the middle of a deadly assault with a deadly weapon. She needed to be stopped, right? So this was a binary. There was one person who was saved from a stabbing and one person who had to die as a result of it, right? And again, it's a tragedy.
Didn't have to die, right? Could have not died, but had to be
stopped. And the only way that
force had to be used to stop the situation.
Correct, right? And the only realistic force available. Now, some people will disagree with this, and I'd love to talk to them about it. But the only realistic force available was his sidearm, right? And so, he shot her 4 times. Maybe you could say he shoot her 1, but people don't understand that when you shoot somebody, and this goes for the military too. So I got this training. When you shoot somebody, the goal is not to kill them. The goal is to stop them. It is to stop the person, right? And so shooting them 1 and then saying, oh, maybe they'll bleed out from it. That's not the point. Like, you're missing the point. The point is to stop the person. And that's you have to shock their system. You have to shoot them center mass. You have to stop them, right? And that's just how this works. And there was no other options. So, and some people disagree with that, but let's talk about the reactions. Tim and I were talking about this, and I said to him, like, hey, do you know anybody on the left who's actually taking the position that everybody on the right says they are, right? So when this shooting happened, I listened to Ben Shapiro, I listened to Steven Crowder, I listened to Tim Pool, I listened to a whole bunch of different people, probably Dave Rubin as well, and they're all saying, look at how crazy the left is being. Like, look at the shooting. They did what we did here. They played the clip. They said, this is, the cop. They basically did exactly what we just did. And then they said, the left is being super crazy about this. And at the time, I did a little bit more research since then. But at the time, I was like, I've only heard people on the right talking about this. I don't know anybody on the left who's said that this is an issue. Now, since then, like I said, I have some articles pulled up. But I think it's still
I've
even
got video of people.
What's that?
I've got some video of people on the left
Talking about it. Well, let's look at that then. So you have people talking, saying that the shoot was bad.
Yeah.
Or you have
so,
okay. All right. So let's
I
look
do.
at that.
So first, I want to do Don Lemon just because.
Right. Okay.
Is he trying out for Zoolander? Like, what is going on here? I don't really understand.
It's best not to speculate with Don Lemon.
It's just a bad thing. So, the reason I want to play this first is because the following talks go over what he's saying and disagree with what he's saying. So,
watching another video like this, and I get it. But even in our anguish, we cannot abandon the responsibility we have to be fair. And even while our hearts are hurting, we have to judge each incident based on what we see and the facts we know. When I look at this video, I see police responding to a dangerous incident where someone is armed with a knife. Police have walked up on a situation, they need to figure out what's happening. Other lives are in danger. If we're going to discuss this case, we need to be honest and use our common sense. We cannot have a double standard. We have to acknowledge that police have jobs to do.
So, Joy, you were talking to...
Yeah, this is The View.
Yeah, all right. So before we get to The View, who is that and what did they do with Don Lemon? I cannot believe the rationality coming out of him, right? And,
yeah, that's... I was surprised when I heard him talking like that. I was like, Like he usually
he's spooling this whole thing up to, you think he's initially spooling it up to be a heart-rending George Floyd 2.0. But then he's like, you got to take every case on its merits. Like, well, yes, that's what we've been saying. So I'm glad he's at least, so once again, people, when your opponents,
he's pro police reform, right? So for the viewers, if you don't know, like Don Lemon is very strongly pro police reform.
Right.
If you watch some of his comments on some of the other things, like he doesn't hold back. He really thinks we need a lot of reform. He is not a defund the police person. He doesn't think we should not have police. He just wants reform. He wants to, fix what he sees as the issues out there. So
yes. And I in my 2 cents is that he's very often unreasonable about it. But we don't need to get it.
So I don't watch The View. I'm going to say this up front because I don't know.
Me neither.
I don't really know who a lot of these people are. I just happened to run across this when I was looking for responses to this shooting, and I felt like these were some of the worst,
more egregious,
worst from the left. Yeah, like it's clear. It's clear when you listen to them, they don't know what they're talking about. They even like, I don't know what I'm talking about, but this is what I think should happen. It's like, come on. So I'll play. This girl's name is Joy first.
He texted me because I mentioned this case yesterday.
Sorry. They're talking about Don Lemon. Apparently she's friends with Don Lemon, so she talks about her conversation with him. That's why I wanted to show that first.
Yesterday in vis-a-vis the George Floyd case. And he said, that the cop had no choice or something to that effect. And my feeling is, I don't know if that's true or not. I really can't figure it out anymore. I mean, it seems to me in a situation, this is what it looked like to me. And I've looked at the tape and I still can't figure it out. Shoot the gun in the air as a warning, tase a person, shoot them in the leg, shoot them in the behind, stop them somehow. But if the only solution is to kill a teenager, there's something wrong with this. There's something.
So that's basically what she has to say. And I agree with her. There is something wrong with this if you have to kill somebody. But the problem, the something wrong isn't that the cop took action. It's that it was at that position to begin with, right?
Yeah, the issue is that the action was necessary. That's
and I mean, the something wrong is the fact that I changed video here, that this is either the foster father or something, or her actual father. I think they might have showed up for this party or something, kicking the girl that she originally tackled.
Yeah.
Right. So she tackled this girl to the ground. This is the father that later in the video says, "You shot my baby." Yeah. Right. kicking the girl that she tackled.
Yeah, so the kicking, absolute shit move. But his reaction to her death, I have no, like, as him being a father, or even
he might be the foster father. He might be.
So
I'm not sure.
His reaction and everything that the family says in all these different interviews, 100% whatever. He's entitled to his feelings. Like, he is a father or a foster father. It's somebody shooting his baby girl. He can react as long as he doesn't hurt the cop. I completely understand his reaction and the reaction of the family, right? So I just wanted to get that out there. You know, like, it's the family's job to be emotionally inconsolable when one of their loved ones gets shot for whatever reason.
So I also wanted to play, what's this girl's name? Sunny. I wanted to play some of her reaction. And then I have one more reaction, and then I'd like to talk about them.
Sure.
What's your thought about this?
Well, Don Lemon and I are dear, dear friends, and we've been dear friends for a long time. And dear friends oftentimes disagree. And Don is wrong here. My question is, why is deadly force always the first order of business? And especially the first order of business when it comes to Black and brown people in this country. I mean, when is it okay, and why is it okay? We shouldn't live in a country, quite frankly, where it's acceptable for the police to shoot a 16-year-old 4 times in the chest over a fight. It goes from 0 to execution very, very quickly when there is a Black or brown person involved. That is just the truth. And
yeah, that one's painful, isn't it?
It's
she goes on basically saying a lot of the same stuff, right?
Listen, so this for those of you who are left or lean left, dumbassery like this allows conservative pundits to say the left doesn't care if Black people kill each other. Now that is not accurate. However, that gives a lot of credence to that statement, right? Because this person right here is completely ignoring the fact that that Micaiah was mid-stab. She was mid-stab when she gets shot. Okay? And so, I mean, I don't know. Please continue.
Let's just finish her talk.
And Don is comparing this case to the case of George Floyd, okay? George Floyd was 46 years old. You have an officer kneeling on his neck for, 9 minutes and 26 seconds. She was 16 years old in foster care. Yes, she was yielding a knife, but there were other girls also allegedly attacking her. Let's compare apples to apples. Let's compare this young girl, 16 years old or 17 years old, to other 17-year-olds. Let's compare her to Kyle Rittenhouse. Video was taken 15 minutes before Rittenhouse allegedly shot and killed 2 people. You know what officers did? He was carrying an assault weapon. The video shows the police shared water with him and thanked him for his presence. Also, after the shooting, he was able to leave the scene. Even though, caught on video, he walked towards police with his hands up. As
I wanted you to hear that part.
Yeah, you wanted me to get all spooled up.
Yeah, I figured that one would do it. So we'll get back to that one in a second. We got one more that I wanted to get to. Make sure I got the timing right. There we go. First off, what is this jacket thing? Is it just me, or does that look really weirdly like?
It looks like, if somebody painted that, I would think that was maybe something from the 1700s.
Just looks, yeah. You know who that is?
Meghan McCain, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't have known by looking. Well done. All right, so here we go. What
ran through your mind when you saw the footage?
Well, it's very disturbing. It's very hard to watch. Look, emotions are running very high right now in the country because of the Chauvin trial and because of everything that this country has experienced the past year and a half, 2 years, or, 275 years, however long back you want to go in American history. But I agree with John Lemon. John Lemon did not text me. I don't have that kind of relationship with him, apparently. But I will say, I want to think about the girl in the pink jumpsuit in this scenario.
Yeah.
She was about to be stabbed. And again, I don't know enough about police, protocol, but I know that had she been able to successfully stab the girl, she possibly could have hit an artery. She possibly could have killed the girl herself. I thought many things too. I thought, where are the parents in this situation in foster care? Because after she was shot, a parent runs out and screams, "You shot my baby." Where was the parent to try and de-escalate the situation?
That's true.
The foster parent at the time, in the beginning. This is hard for me to talk about because much like as it's hard for Joy to talk about, the way I was raised is to respect authority, is to respect police officers, to respect law enforcement. I have a lot of friends who are in the military and who also are police officers. But working on the show and then experiencing what I've experienced, as all Americans have the past few years, no one without two brain cells in their head can't understand that police tend to treat African Americans and people of color a different way than they do white people. And it's just a fact we're all trying to reconcile and come to terms with. But when you have people like LeBron James posting pictures of this police officer before it has been adjudicated and litigated, you're also putting that police officer's life in danger. And I would like more killing to stop in this country and violence to stop. I understand everything Sunny is saying. I hear you loud and clear. I just disagree in this situation because I think that she was about to stab another girl, and I think the police officer did what he thought he had to do. And I do think,
I think it's a place to stop. But so I guess one thing I liked about this was, The View is obviously a very left, show.
Oh, yes.
They have multiple points of views. I like that. Now it's biased and it's but still, it's at least a bit in the right direction there.
So they have Meghan McCain on there as the token Republican. They, if you haven't been tracking it at all, there's real good drama to come out of this show every couple months or so. And Meghan will say something, and Joy Behar will take extreme dislike to it, and they'll fight about it. Maybe Meghan will leave, or they'll yell at each other.
I don't follow it at all. I know.
No, I'm aware. I can't
stand most TV.
I thought I heard the super tightly controlled format with 5 minutes for content, 5 minutes for commercials. I can't stand it.
I thought I heard somewhere that Meghan McCain might be a presidential candidate coming up or something. But anyway, so my takes on this was one, if you don't know what you're talking about, so this is on Joy, don't talk, right? She's like, I can't figure this out. I don't understand. Could you have done this? Couldn't you have done that? If you don't know what you're talking about, why are you just throwing out random possibilities that you don't know if they were a good solution? What's firing a gun in the air going to do?
Yeah, well, it depends on so you have an issue both with what she said and how she said it, right? She said, I don't know, and you have an issue with her talking about that. Well, you could argue that we here on this show, we talk about a lot of things that we're not fully appraised of, even though we do work before the episode to get ourselves up to speed. We're not subject matters on everything. I think she has a right to responsibly, and I think she actually did say that responsibly, say, I don't know, and then say, here's what I'm thinking. I think that is actually the most responsible way for her to be the talk host, right? Or the show host, because she is on this show. She's expected to talk about this. She has to do it some way, and she has that opinion that I disagree with. I think the most responsible way for her to do that was to say, I don't know, here's what I think. And then
I agree with you.
Let's say,
you changed my mind. You changed your mind.
Did I?
I generally agreed with that.
That's
anyway.
amazing. Why? I wish I could have done that for something else. I can't choose what. I wish I could just get a voucher where I could just change your mind on one other thing.
I agree to a point, but I think at the end where I disagree with her statement. So I agree that it's coming out and saying, look, I don't know if this is right or wrong. Could you have done this? Could you have done that? I think that'd have been fine. The way she came out was more, he was wrong. Yeah, he was wrong. I don't know if these were the right solutions or something else, but whatever he did was wrong. I think that's the wrong approach. But I 100% agree with you that coming out and saying, look, I don't know what the right thing to do is, this could have been it, that could have been it. I think we need to look at it more. Would have been fine, but I think the way she approached it puts into people's minds or continues that story of, the cop did something wrong. And then the next one, the Sunny, her name was, I had to look at my notes. Man, she took that like to a whole new like level. She took it to the race side, right? Which I thought you would have something to say about. I mean, what evidence in that video is that that race had anything to do with it? If I'm a white racist cop, and I see a black person attempting to kill another black person, why do I put myself and my job and other things at risk to save one black person by killing another? Like, if I'm racist and I just want blacks dead or whatever, like, just don't do anything. Right?
Yes. So it goes back to the beginning of the podcast. I mean, if you uncritically accept the statement that this was a racist shooting just because it was a white cop shooting a black person, like, you're doing a disservice to yourself. You're doing a disservice to anybody else who you're spreading that to. Like, you need to think about this. This matters, right? If it's racist, it matters, right? It matters what it actually is, right? And if you just uncritically accept it, you're just doing a disservice to the discourse, right?
I got to get rid of McCain. I forgot she was up there. And the next piece of what she said that really bothers me, and I think too many people don't realize, is, she's like, how can you just come out and shoot a 16-year-old girl, you said earlier, who may have made the phone call, who X, Y, or Z, right? The cop doesn't know any of that. He just got out of the car.
Yep.
He doesn't know how old she is. He doesn't know what's happened. He doesn't know who's called. He doesn't know anything, but he gets out of the car and sees a girl charging one girl with a knife and then getting up and charging another girl with a knife with it in a deadly thrust motion.
Right. And it's not just that, right? So if you're listening, let's say we're narrating the scenario for you and we say, oh, there's a girl charging with a knife. It's not just that. It's a girl who tackled another girl in front of a police officer, okay? And then charges the other girl in pink while the police officer is shouting, "Get down." Okay, right? So all that matters, right? So everybody knows what everybody knows in this situation, right? Micaiah is like, so what she's done right there is demonstrate that she is either so emotionally distraught or deliberately ignoring the police officer that she does pose that danger. Right, it's not, and she is actively swinging the knife, right? So it's like all of this stuff comes together, and it's like.
Have you seen the footage from across the street?
I did, but it was so small. It was on my phone, and it was very small, so I didn't really.
I have it up. I find it to be.
Let me read some headlines while you're pulling that up. Oh, you have it. Okay, go ahead.
I already had it up. Yeah, I find it to be an interesting second view. Right, of what happened. So from this particular news article that I grabbed it from, this is the beginning of it, but he just gets out of his car right here. Like, he pulls up and gets out of his car, and so we can play it. So in that video, interestingly to me, you can see he grabs her at one point.
The cop?
Yeah. So watch again as... Oh, I don't want to talk about her. Get out of here. All right. Watch again as he walks up and she runs down chasing the girl with the knife. When he realizes she has a knife, he grabs Micaiah at some point somehow on the shoulder or somewhere on her upper torso. It looks like it to me, at least.
I can't.
And she kind of keeps going and
his
moves out. But
going out is when he has the gun.
It was before that, is what I was thinking. But regardless, like, that's how close and fast everything happened. I think it's a different view from here, right? Like, I feel like you just see a little bit more from that angle of how fast and crazy things were. But read some articles.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not even going to bring these up, but I after I talked to Tim about it, and I was like, I feel like the right is accusing the left of something they're not doing, and that is partially true. Like, again, like you saw Don Lemon, who is usually if there's a Black Lives Matter cause, he is on the side of it, right? So if there's a civil rights issue targeting a black person, he's generally on the side of it. And he was on the other side of it this time, indicating that there's a much larger portion of the left who sort of didn't fall for the "this is a racist shooting" narrative. But I did find several articles. This one from She Knows says Ma'Khia Bryant's death wasn't just a failure of police. The foster care system failed her too, right? So this was a failure of police. However, I also want to talk about foster care, right? So this implied in this headline right there, this is a failure of police. Like, okay, explain to me what you mean by this was a failure of police, right? So obviously, we discussed that ad nauseum. There was also, here's an article. This article's just talking about there were protests, right? There were pretty big protests, but not tens of thousands, right? This was, from what I understand, there was a couple hundred people at these protests. And that was just in one location. I'm sure there were more nationwide, but these weren't George Floyd level riots or protests, either one, right? This was on a much smaller scale. Another
What
one.
was the size of your protest?
Was
it was 3 George Floyds. So
yeah,
what was the size of your protest?
Units. Yeah.
It's a new unit.
Another headline, activists say fatal shooting of black girl by Columbus police proves the Chauvin verdict is not enough, right? So the indication here is that we're trying to get police reform done.
How dumb is that shit? This was before the verdict came out.
Yeah, well, this is an article written after the verdict came out.
I know, but by saying this shooting proves the verdict wasn't enough doesn't mean shit, because this happened before the verdict came out.
So this is a statement not about the Chauvin trial per se, but saying the Chauvin trial was a victory, but the victory is hollow because we still have these problems in the United States. It's not saying that Derek Chauvin needed to get more because of this shooting.
No, I take it as like, obviously by convicting this cop, other cops don't care. We need to do more. Well,
yes. Yeah,
this cop would have had no idea what the verdict was yet because it hadn't come out yet. So how would he have felt the impact of that?
Certainly, that's a good point. You should bring it up with the author. So the most egregious one, this was actually mentioned by Meghan McCain, I think. It was LeBron James' tweet. Did you hear about this?
Yeah, he tweeted, your next something accountability.
Yeah.
And I I pretty much 100% agree with hashtag accountability. Transparency,
right. As most
accountability for your action. Yeah, I agree. I think almost everybody probably does.
Proper review boards for use of force. Yes. Like everybody's on board for that, actually. It's just the degree to which, and then, other stuff like defunding cops. But the first part of his tweet, he posted the picture of the police officer that shot Ma'Khia, right? Again, we think justifiably, even though it sucks. He posted the picture of that cop and said, "You're next." Hashtag accountability, right? And so that's not just implying that he did something wrong. That is very, I'm trying to be exact with my words here. That is very close to calls for violence, right? Reasonable people would interpret that as a call for violence.
I would not.
I'm not saying
I do not at all.
Tiptoeing right around the border of it.
Mm-mm. So with the Derek Chauvin thing just finishing, to me, it's really absolutely clear that
put him through the court
you're next, especially with accountability after it.
Right.
Is just saying you are going to be held accountable for your actions. You're going to be the next Derek Chauvin. Yeah. Like you're going to, that kind of thing. Not. What's the you're next for violence? Like what was the violence against Derek Chauvin or against another police officer? Where was that violence at?
It's just you're next is a pretty direct quasi-violent statement, but you changed my mind.
See? Now we're 1 for 1.
Yeah, I know. No, nobody gets a voucher. So he deleted that tweet because it's obviously needlessly inflammatory, plus, just straight up incorrect. But he doesn't actually think it was incorrect. So he tweeted after that and said, "This is he said he deleted it, saying that the tweet itself, right? This is what he says: that my tweet, I deleted it because it's being used to create more hate, right? So that's first of all, okay. Second of all, and then he continues saying, this isn't about one officer. It's about an entire system, and they always use our words to create more racism. I'm so desperate for more accountability. And that's, to me, that's just a shitty excuse for a very bad tweet. This is what I'm talking about with people who have large platforms and they speak without knowledge on the subject, right? So this is where it starts getting into, you should not be doing this, right? So again, if he had this opinion and he was just Joe Schmo with no followers and he posted it, I would just say, like, why are you posting that? You don't know what you're talking about. But with him,
like us, we can do whatever we want.
Correct, because we have no followers. But right, so you see what I'm saying, though, right? So it's like he's got millions of people in his audience, and he's not doing any due diligence on the subject. Like, that's lazy and irresponsible, and it's not good. It's very bad for the Discord. Good? Okay. So, I mean, that was pretty much all I had to say on that. And again, so I think most people who bother taking some time to realize that this isn't just another George Floyd incident, people who actually take a look at the incident, most people, I think, come down on the side that this is a tragedy. But I mean, the police officer should still be working. He did nothing wrong.
Yeah, it's there's so many things that went wrong in this situation, but none of them were his fault. I mean, he reacted the way he needed to. The one thing I would say, like, you hear all the time, like, Monday morning quarterbacking, and he could have, should have, taser, fire in the air, whatever, right? All these things. The one thing I wish he would have done is used better commands.
Yeah.
Right? Like, drop it.
Let me just say,
whatever.
I'm not to engage in this conversation with you, but like, we both, again, were critiquing something that he had to do in the moment. Get down wasn't the best.
Yeah, right. I'm not saying that it changes the game, or right. It wasn't the best that he could have done. It's something that you would think is easy enough to train, maybe. I don't know, but it's not like, it's not a big thing. It's just one of those that could have made a difference. Maybe. It's not his fault. It's not his fault, right? It's
said drop the knife. I think that might, but you think so.
His command would have worked had she listened to the command, right, and gotten down. Then she wouldn't have been in the process of stabbing, and the shooting wouldn't have happened. So it's not like his command didn't.
Yeah, I think he could have used a better command for sure. Like obviously he could have said drop the knife. I think that would have been a little bit better, a little bit more targeted. Or I'll shoot is also even better, right? So drop the knife. Yeah. I'm about to shoot. I'm going to shoot. Drop the knife. Like if you say that, that's probably the best combination of words to get somebody's attention there. But I'm going to say, again, I was alluding to this a little bit earlier. She must have been seeing red, totally tunnel visioned. I honestly don't think she knew the cop was there, because she shoved a girl right in front of the police officer and then proceeded to go try to stab another girl right in front of a police officer. I think people who are aware of their surroundings don't do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think she would have reacted to it. And again, I'm not trying to say that makes a difference or that he's liable, because I just like, when I watch that, that's the one thing that stands out that I'm like, damn, I wish he'd have said something different, because get down to me just doesn't, like, if I'm her and I hear get down, that doesn't trigger for some reason. Like,
I know.
But if I heard drop the knife, I might be like, oh, he must be talking to me because I have a fucking knife. Like, Yeah,
get down is a pretty big go-to during training. Usually you just try to get people down on the ground, right? I remember when we were doing baton training, it was get back, get down, get back, get down. And it's sometimes those automatic verbal go-tos that you have, they're not necessarily applicable to the situation, but it is a control command, right? So technically, if she was listening, that would have worked.
Yeah, it's semantics. It's just, that's the semantics that stood out in my mind.
Well, we can speculate all day long about, maybe it would have.
But long story short, like, that one is less controversial than most and still has all this controversy. But I hate that it's being made political on the racial front. To me, that is the worst part of it.
most of these are not racial. Look, so Tim, so there's Chris would be able to better describe this if he was here, but there's basic thing too that I haven't really been acknowledging, which is that there's a difference between racism in the incident and then systemic racism. We've talked about this a couple different times, but they're still wrong when the people on the left say that this is a result of systemic racism, and basically that means that you don't even have to be racist. It's just that the system is set up in a certain way so that the police interact with more black people and kill more black people, right? That would be systemic racism. That's a more honest argument, in that I still disagree with that, and we can talk about that all day long. But for people who are saying that this is a racist police officer, you just it's just so egregious. And you're right, the situation doesn't need it. This is already enough of a tragedy. The family's already going to be feeling bad enough without being told by a radical group of people like, hey, your daughter died because of racism. It's like, no, your daughter died because she was trying to stab someone.
I agree that we need police reform in general, right?
I would agree.
The level of whatever, okay, there's some discussion to be had.
Yep.
But I don't agree per se. I'm open to being convinced that it is more driven by systemic racism than just narcissism, maybe is not the right word, but whatever, in the police force. But I think it's more that. And I think we just aren't getting the political attention and media attention on some of these other cases that you get on.
You showed, I mean, there's cases of cops killing plenty of white people.
Yeah, I mean, the one that we talked about before was, I forget his name now, but the guy who got shot coming out of his apartment. Or, I actually have the video. I have the video of this 73-year-old white woman walking down the street that has dementia, where the cop breaks her
collarbone. Was it
breaks something and dislocates her shoulder.
Yep.
And then I don't know if you've seen the footage of the booking room afterwards. I mean, they're literally like, they're watching.
Oh yeah,
it
they were watching it, and they said like, "Here goes the pop" or something like that.
And the guy's like, "Here comes the pop," and they're talking about like, "Do you think that we're going to get in trouble for this?" And they're like, "We sent it."
Like, yes.
They're like, we sent it to the blue team. I guess that means like their internal review team for potential injury and stuff. And then like when they took her to the jail, they asked if she was injured, and they just said no. Like all kinds of things, dude. It's just ugly. It's just so ugly, and it's just an indifference to the people that they're interacting with. It's not about race. In most cases, I do think that there are definitely officers that are racist, and I think that there's probably a negative bias across the police force because they interact so often with people of color, unfortunately.
I'm aware. The only study I'm aware of is that they actually shoot black people a little bit less than they should. That's complicated, though. That's complicated. That's real complicated.
I don't. My evidence is anecdotal, and talking with people, knowing people, having family that were police officers, etc., and hearing stories. But I do believe that there is a bias there, but I think that's an experience-based bias, not a like. How do I say that without sounding like I'm accepting of it? I think it's shit, and it shouldn't be there.
Would you agree that it's possible that because I would agree, I would think that probably after say patrolling inner cities for 20 odd years, you're going to have a bias, and I would agree with that. Now, would you agree that you would need to statistically show that not just that they're biased, but that they act on those biases, right? You would need a statistical analysis of.
Well, so let me just pose it this way in an extreme. This isn't how it actually happens, but just to give you an idea, right? Let's say you're doing your job as an officer and over a 10-year period, and every single time you've pulled over a black man, they've resisted or tried to run or flee or whatever. Right. And every single time you pulled over a white man, exactly, I'm being hyperbolic on purpose. And every single time you pulled over a white man, they were extremely respectful, did everything you asked, never had a problem. So you're on brand new thing. You pull somebody over and then you realize that they're white. Are you more or less alarmed? You're fine. You're like, oh, okay. Your subconscious is telling you every single time I've pulled over a white guy, they've been, compliant. And then you pull it and then you pull over the black guy, and your subconscious, same thing happens. Your subconscious tells you, I need to be on guard. This is going to get crazy. Whatever, right?
Yeah, it's just in your.
It might be consciously too, right? I'm just trying to say, like biases happen based on experience, right or wrong. And I'm not trying to say that
Okay,
that's
so
a hyperbolic. I'm not saying
Yes,
blacks
so,
always
but-
resist. I'm just saying, like,
all I'm going to say,
bias
Tim,
will develop.
I'm not going to deny that. I'm not even going to deny implicit bias. My point is that you can actually bypass all of that guesswork and saying, oh, he's probably biased. He might be biased, and that could be affecting. I'm saying you can actually do a statistical analysis of interactions, right? Say, I have 10,000 interactions across the country that are almost virtually the same thing. It's a traffic stop this time
We
of
looked
day.
at those. We did that before on this podcast.
Correct.
And we showed that, I believe it was that blacks were interacted with more
you
and
would
had
remember
more
it like that,
physical
wouldn't you?
interaction. But it wasn't like this massive difference. It was more, but it wasn't like double, triple, quadruple from what I remember. It was like 20% more or something like that, right?
Okay. Well, I don't remember doing that on this podcast. I'm aware of one study that said that New Jersey cops were getting cited for internally cited for pulling over too many black people for speeding. And so somebody did an independent study where they just looked at who was speeding, and it turns out that they were actually under pulling over black people. That they were pulling over more white people. It was just that black people were speeding more. So it's like, if you're not doing a controlled study like that, I'm not really interested in your statistics.
So if I remember correctly from when we looked, it was that for speeding, whites were disproportionately pulled over, but for street stops, so where somebody's walking down the sidewalk or doing whatever, and you pull over and you stop them, it wasn't stopping for us. It was just a street stop. You just stop and talk to them, whatever. That blacks were disproportionately.
Yeah, that could be. We'll have to go back over that again, I guess, when we.
But all that data is available. That it's on a federal level. They track it, I guess, across the country.
Yep. So I guess my only point is that you got to demonstrate this stuff, right? You can't just make the claim, as many people do. Don't just trust people who make claims to the best.
You tell me to just trust you all the time.
Yeah, because we don't have time
at
to
least
go into
once
so many
every
different things.
podcast. But you didn't do it this
You're
podcast.
conflating something that's completely different. I
No,
expect
you just
everybody
said
in
don't
this
just
audience,
trust people.
Okay. I expect everybody in the audience that we have to verify what I say or to not act on it, right? So if you're just passively taking in information and you're not going to do anything with it, I don't expect you to do anything. But if you're going to run for governor off of some information I'm giving you, you need to double check your sources, please. Right? So there's a difference.
You sound like Sidney Powell.
Sidney Powell.
No reasonable person would believe you.
Oh God.
Do you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. That is just some of the best stuff ever. So
basically, Republicans aren't reasonable. That's what he's saying.
It's like, oh God, conspiracy theories. Okay, well, I see we're at 10:30 right now. So, what do you think?
Yeah, we can call it. For those that are still here, looks like a couple. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for all the comments, and we will see you next week.
Peace out.
Peace.